Have you ever felt a heaviness you couldn't explain? Like something was weighing on your spirit, but it wasn't your burden to carry? Maybe you've caught yourself weeping for no reason, waking from dreams that didn't belong to you, or sensing a sadness that feels ancient, older than your own lifetime. What if I told you that not every emotion you feel is truly yours? That some of the weight you carry could be the echo of another soul, one that hasn't moved on. Right now, all around you there are souls stuck in between. They were once people like you, with hopes, regrets, cravings, fears. But when their bodies died, those unresolved emotions didn't die with them. Instead, they lingered. Some became distortions, some grew stronger, and some found their way into the lives of the living, feeding on energy, looping through memories, clinging to moments they never let go of. These are what ancient teachings call hungry souls. And they're not just ghosts haunting dark hallways. They're energetic impressions, fragmented consciousnesses that couldn't make peace before crossing over. Some of them don't even know they're dead. Others do, but they refuse to move on. Their hunger binds them. Hunger for revenge, hunger for love, hunger for control, hunger for healing. It doesn't matter what the craving is. What matters is that it persists. You may have felt their influence already. That mood that crashes into you out of nowhere. The irrational fear. The temptation to sabotage your own peace. Sometimes these aren't your thoughts at all. Sometimes they are whispers from a soul trying to complete its unfinished story. Through you. There's a space between death and what we might call the light, a liminal realm. Some call it the gray zone. It isn't hell. It isn't punishment. It's more like a fog, a state of consciousness where a soul becomes lost in its own attachments. And the only way it can feel real again is by feeding off emotion. That's how it stays tethered. That's how it remembers itself. So it searches for resonance in people, in families, in places. But when it finds a match, it latches on. Guilt finds guilt. Grief finds grief. Rage finds rage. But this isn't to scare you, it's to awaken you. Because the truth is, your life may already be entangled with these energies. Think about those moments when you reacted in ways that shocked you, when you said things you didn't mean, when you felt flooded with a pain you couldn't trace. What if those were signs that something, or someone, was echoing through you? There are souls who lived entire lives consumed by one dominant force. Lust, greed, jealousy, addiction, fear. When they die, that energy doesn't just disappear, it intensifies. It becomes identity. In the absence of a physical body to regulate or redirect it, the obsession becomes the only thing left. That's what shapes the form of a hungry soul. Not wings or halos or horns, but vibration, energetic deformation. Their once human essence now twisted by years or centuries of unprocessed emotion. Some traditions depict them as shadows with mouths too small to feed. Others see them as bloated spirits always eating but never full. And while the metaphors may vary, the message is the same. Hunger traps the soul. The more it craves, the further it drifts from peace. You may live in a house that holds this kind of residue, a room that always feels colder, a corner that stirs unease. Sometimes it's not the building. It's the memory embedded in the space. Trauma, betrayal, grief. And if you're sensitive to energy, you might feel those patterns pulling at you, blending with your own vibration. That's why it's so important to know what belongs to you and what doesn't. But this goes deeper than haunted places. Sometimes it's in your bloodline, passed down like an invisible heirloom. A rage that lives in every man in the family, a sorrow that haunts all the women, patterns that repeat across generations no matter how hard you try to change them. These are not just genetic, they are energetic, inherited pain, spiritual echo. And they are often the work of hungry souls who never found resolution and are still looking for it through you. You are not just the result of your own experiences, you are the intersection of many timelines, many stories. And some of those stories are still unfinished. That's why you may feel emotions that don't make sense. That's why healing isn't just personal, it's ancestral. But here's the most important truth. Awareness is the beginning of liberation. Hungry souls don't seek to possess, they seek to be heard, to be acknowledged, to be seen, and the moment you become aware, the moment you say, "This feeling is not mine, but I honor its presence," you begin to loosen the grip. There are practices, ancient ones, that help guide these souls toward peace. Not through fear, not through exorcism, but through compassion, light, intention. A prayer whispered from the heart, a candle lit with sincerity, a moment of silence offered not in fear but in recognition. These are the rituals that matter, because just as we are affected by the restless dead, we are also capable of helping them rest. A hungry soul is not a demon. It's not a monster hiding in the shadows. It is, at its core, a human being, whose deepest wounds were never healed. Someone who left the physical world with unfinished business, not in the material sense, but in the emotional, spiritual, and energetic sense. Imagine dying with a longing so strong that it shapes your very afterlife. A desire so unresolved it becomes your identity. That is a hungry soul. These are the spirits who never made peace with themselves. Maybe they died with guilt still wrapped around their hearts. Maybe they couldn't forgive the person who hurt them. Maybe they couldn't let go of the person they loved. Whatever it was, it bound them. And because they never found closure, they became stuck, trapped in the space between the worlds. Death does not automatically bring enlightenment. Consciousness doesn't magically evolve just because the body dissolves. What you carry in life, you carry with you into the next dimension. If you pass with bitterness, that bitterness follows you. If you pass with peace, that peace becomes your path. The state of your soul in the final moments of breath, that becomes your frequency. And when that frequency is heavy with craving, anger, obsession, or sorrow, it creates a field, a gravitational pull that tethers the soul. It can't rise, it can't fall, it just drifts. And so it begins to feed, not out of malice, but out of inertia. It feeds on memory, on sensation, on energy, anything that reminds it of life. There's an old story passed down through spiritual circles. A woman named Lillian lived in the same small farmhouse for over 70 years. She was known in her town as kind but solitary, a quiet figure who rarely spoke of her past. After her passing, the house sat empty for some time, until a new couple moved in. Strange things began to happen. The same radio station would turn on by itself at 9:03 every morning, always playing the same song. A perfume they never owned would fill the bedroom around dusk, and most disturbingly, the wife began to cry in her sleep every night. Always the same soft weeping. No dreams, just tears. Eventually they found an old diary in the attic. Lillian had written about a child she lost at birth on a cold February morning at 9:03. Her grief was so overwhelming she never told a soul, never spoke the child's name again, never let herself mourn. That sorrow, repressed and buried, had become a gravitational center. Her soul stayed circling the moment she could never accept, and it sought resonance through the emotions of another woman who now slept in the same room. This is how hunger becomes inertia. It's not loud. It's not always violent. Often it's quiet, a kind of echo, looping endlessly in time, waiting for release. Mystical traditions from across the world speak of this liminal state. Tibetan teachings describe it as the bardo, the space between lives, where the soul experiences visions shaped by its own inner landscape. In the bardo, peaceful energies can guide the soul toward liberation. But when a soul is overwhelmed by attachment, it becomes blinded, magnetized to the world it left behind. This magnetism can lead the soul to become what is known in those teachings as a preta, a wandering being, desperate for fulfillment it can no longer find. The Theosophical writings also echo this idea. They speak of the astral shell, a residue of the emotional body that clings to earthly vibration long after physical death. These shells are not conscious in the way we understand, but they are reactive. They respond to emotional triggers in the living. When someone feels rage, grief, or lust, these shells may gravitate toward them, amplifying what's already there. They don't cause the emotion, but they ride its wave like a surfer catching a current. Think of it this way. You are a transmitter. Your thoughts and feelings emit frequencies, and if your frequency matches that of a hungry soul, even for a moment, a link is formed. You become a beacon, and unless you're aware, you may not know whether what you're feeling is truly yours, or something ancient, something hungry, resonating through you. But this isn't just about fear. It's about understanding, because awareness brings compassion, and compassion is what these souls need most. They don't need banishment. They need release. What keeps them bound is not darkness. It's the lack of light, the lack of recognition. No one ever truly heard them. No one ever named their pain. And so they keep returning, not to haunt, but to be acknowledged. There's power in naming what was once hidden. There's healing in telling the untold story. When you feel a surge of sadness that doesn't belong to your day, pause. Instead of resisting it, ask, "Is this mine?" And if it isn't, speak from the heart, "I see you. I feel your pain. You are free to go." Even if you don't hear a response, the energy shifts, because the moment you acknowledge what has been denied, you break the loop, you interrupt the inertia, you shine light on the hunger, and sometimes that's all it takes for a soul to finally rise. There is a place not found on any map. No borders, no stars, just a drifting fog where time dissolves and identity fades. Some call it purgatory, others call it limbo, but among mystics and energy workers it's simply known as the gray zone. The gray zone isn't heaven. It isn't hell. It's not punishment or paradise. It's the in-between, the holding space for the unresolved. A dimension shaped by thought and emotion where the soul, still clinging to its earthly cravings, loops in confusion. It doesn't know if it's alive or dead. It only knows one thing. Something is missing. Imagine waking up and not remembering who you are, but still feeling everything you ever feared, wanted, or lost, amplified 1,000 times over. That's the experience of the gray zone. It's like a dream you can't wake up from, and the longer a soul stays there, the more it forgets its original nature, the more it identifies not with its essence, but with its wounds. What keeps a soul in the gray zone isn't evil, it's addiction, but not the kind you might think. These spirits become addicted to emotion, to sensation, not because they enjoy it, but because it reminds them they still exist. They're starving for any feeling that anchors them back to a sense of self. That's why they reach for the living, not to possess but to feel. They're drawn to those who radiate familiar frequencies. If a soul died clinging to despair, it will gravitate toward anyone who's grieving. If it died with rage in its heart, it will find those who are angry. It doesn't matter who you are. If your emotional state matches theirs, you become the mirror. You become the window they look through to remember life. And when that happens, you might start feeling things that aren't yours. You might wake up with a sadness that makes no sense, or feel waves of fear just by standing in a particular room. You may catch yourself thinking thoughts that don't feel like yours, or crying tears with no memory attached. This isn't imagination. This isn't drama. It's energetic resonance. Something old, something stuck, is trying to feel again. Through you. There was a woman once. Her name was Kiera. She moved into a modest rental house just outside a quiet rural town. She was starting over after a painful divorce. New job, new town, a chance to reclaim peace. But almost immediately she noticed something was off. The back room felt heavier than the rest. Not cold, but dense, like the air had weight. Every time she walked past it, she'd feel a pressure in her chest, a kind of sorrow she couldn't explain. Within weeks, Kira began experiencing bouts of crying that seemed to come out of nowhere. She'd be cooking dinner or folding laundry, and suddenly, tears. No thoughts, just emotion. A deep grief that felt familiar and foreign all at once. At first, she thought it was just the divorce catching up with her. But when she started dreaming of a woman she didn't recognize, always standing in the same place, always with the same look of longing, she began to wonder if something else was at play. A local healer confirmed what her intuition already whispered. The house was holding on to something, or rather, someone. Decades earlier, a woman had lived there who lost her husband in a tragic accident, just days before their anniversary. She'd waited by the window every evening, hoping he'd return. She died there, still waiting. That grief had become her anchor to the physical world. She couldn't let go, and so she stayed. Not out of malice. Out of love, distorted by longing. When Kira moved in, already grieving her own loss, their emotions matched, and a connection formed. But here's what changed everything. Instead of fearing the presence, Kira acknowledged it. She lit a candle each evening in the back room, spoke aloud to the spirit, shared her own heartbreak, and after a few weeks, the heaviness lifted. The dreams stopped. The tears no longer came. It was as if both of them had released something together. That's the paradox of the grey zone. It is formed by confusion but healed by clarity. A soul stays lost because it believes it still has something to resolve, a person to find, a debt to pay, a wound to relive. But once it is seen, once it is acknowledged, that illusion begins to fade, and the path home becomes visible. The truth is, you may be interacting with these energies more often than you know. The sudden fatigue when entering a certain building, the feeling of being watched when you're alone, the shift in your mood without any obvious trigger. These are not always psychological. Sometimes they are spiritual cues, signs that something unseen is brushing against your field. You are not powerless in the face of these interactions. You are a sovereign being. Your awareness, your light, your intention, these are tools that can shift entire dimensions. If you sense a presence, speak to it. You don't need ritual, you don't need fancy words. Just presence, just sincerity. Say, you are seen, you are not alone. You can let go. The souls that dwell in the grey zone aren't looking to scare you. They're looking for peace. And sometimes all it takes is one moment of genuine connection to set a spirit free. There is something you need to understand about what happens after death, something few ever consider. Your dominant traits, the thoughts you nourish the most, the emotions you cling to, they don't just vanish when your body does. In fact, they intensify. Without the filter of the physical body to regulate and balance them, those energies expand, deepen, and sometimes if you lived a life ruled by greed, that greed doesn't disappear when your heart stops beating. It becomes the lens through which your soul perceives everything. If you were consumed by guilt or shame, those emotions harden like sediment at the bottom of a still lake, distorting your sense of self. They begin to shape not only how you feel, but what you become. Because thought creates form. You've seen it in life already, how a bitter person seems to carry darkness on their face, how kindness can literally make someone glow. That's not just metaphor. Energy molds matter, and beyond the veil of this world, where physical boundaries no longer contain consciousness, that principle magnifies. A soul without a body becomes a mirror of its dominant vibration, not in theory but in actual form. Imagine a soul who spent decades hoarding wealth and power, believing that control was the only way to survive. When that soul dies, it doesn't transcend to peace. It clings to what it knows. And without a body to anchor its perception, it begins to deform, not into a monster, but into a grotesque exaggeration of itself, an entity made of sharp edges, dense frequencies, and restless craving. Not evil, it is stuck. Or picture someone who lived entirely through lust, using others, manipulating intimacy, feeding off desire without ever giving love. When that soul passes, what's left? A vibration built from compulsion and emptiness. An essence desperate to feel, yet incapable of connection. It drifts, seeking sensation, often attaching to the living in ways that disrupt their emotional or sexual balance, not to torment, but to feel again. And what about guilt? The kind that festers, unspoken. A soul who never forgave themselves, who believed they were beyond redemption. That energy becomes heavy, almost tangible. The soul shrinks inward, looping in memories of what they should have done, could have changed. The energetic body tightens, folds, becomes dense with sorrow. It can't rise, not because it's being punished, but because it won't let itself. Ancient traditions saw this long before modern psychology ever touched the topic. In Buddhist texts, there is a realm of beings called preta, or hungry ghosts. They are depicted with enormous stomachs and impossibly thin necks, forever starving, unable to eat, unable to be satisfied. But that image isn't literal, it's symbolic. These spirits are not suffering because someone cursed them. They're suffering because of their own unresolved craving, their own attachments. In Egyptian spirituality, there is the concept of the ka, a duplicate of the soul's vital energy that lingers after death. If the soul does not receive proper rites, or if it lived without alignment to truth, the ka may remain restless, bound to the material world, feeding on the energy of offerings or memory. It can wander, echoing the personality of the person it once belonged to but stripped of growth. Different cultures, different symbols, but the same truth. What you carry inside becomes who you are, even after death. This is why your vibration matters. Right now, in this life, you are shaping your post-physical identity with every thought you choose, every emotion you fuel. Your dominant vibration is not just affecting your experiences here, it's creating the echo you'll become, the version of yourself that continues on, and it's not about fear, it's about responsibility. Empowerment. You have the ability, right now, to shape the frequency of your soul, to choose forgiveness over bitterness, to choose understanding over judgment, to release shame, to transmute desire into sacred love. Every moment is a chance to shift your energetic signature, because when the body falls away, that signature is what remains. And this is the soul's paradox. You are formless, but your thoughts give you form. You are infinite, but your beliefs can build prisons. If you do not heal what haunts you in life, you may carry it beyond, where it becomes your skin. There's a reason spiritual masters spoke of clearing karma, of purifying the heart, of dying before you die. It wasn't just about religion, it was about vibration. They knew that peace is not given, it is cultivated. So when you encounter the idea of hungry souls, remember, they are not monsters, they are people. People who never knew how to let go. People who didn't believe they were worthy of light. And the form they now take is only the consequence of their inner state made visible. The gnarled, shadowy figure glimpsed in a dream, that may be a soul warped by lifetimes of addiction. The whispering presence that always feels cold, that may be someone who died believing they were unloved. What you sense as strange may simply be suffering given shape. And you are the witness, the bridge, the one who can see without fear and bring compassion where others would bring panic. You don't have to be a mystic or a priest to help. You just have to hold your light steady. Choose love, choose clarity, choose to raise your own vibration, because when you do, you become a lighthouse. And even the most deformed soul can recognize that glow. They are not evil, they are echoes. And you might be the last echo they ever need before they remember who they truly are. You are not alone in your energy, and you never have been. There are days you may feel drained for no reason, Mornings when you wake up heavy, like you've carried someone else's sadness through the night. Dreams that leave you haunted, even if you can't remember them. A familiar voice in your head, but not your own. These aren't just random occurrences. Sometimes they're the presence of something else. Something hungry. Something unresolved that's found a thread of resonance in you. Hungry souls don't always appear in dramatic ways. They move subtly, quietly, through mood, through thought, through the invisible channels of emotion. Their energy isn't always loud, but it's persistent. And over time, if you're not aware, it can begin to wear you down. You might find yourself feeling sadness that doesn't match your life, irritability that seems to come out of nowhere, a wave of guilt you can't explain. These are the symptoms of energetic intrusion, not possession, not domination, but influence. Like a faint song playing in the background, shaping the atmosphere of your inner world. This is emotional vampirism, not the Hollywood kind, but a very real, very spiritual phenomenon. It happens when an unhealed energy begins to cling to your auric field, drawing from your emotional current. The more you feel, the more it feeds. Not because it's evil, but because that's how it survives. But here's the subtle danger. If you're a deeply empathic person, you may not even notice it at first. In fact, you might mistake it for your gift. You feel deeply. You connect, you care. But there's a thin line between empathy and entanglement. Empathy is when you feel someone's energy, but you remain rooted in yourself. Entanglement is when you absorb it, when it becomes your own. And when you absorb what isn't yours for too long, it begins to rewrite you. You take on wounds you've never lived. You repeat patterns that aren't yours to carry. You start living emotions that belong to someone else's unfinished story. This is how the past enters the present, how souls that haven't moved on find hosts not to harm, but to express, to release. And if you're not conscious of it, you may unknowingly act as their channel. And it goes deeper. These energetic patterns don't just affect individuals. They ripple through families, bloodlines, and even entire communities. Pain, when unhealed, doesn't vanish. It roots itself into the psychic soil of a lineage. It gets passed down not just through genetics, but through energy. You've seen it. Families where every woman carries heartbreak. Families where addiction follows like a shadow. Where anger is inherited like furniture. These aren't just psychological trends. They're energetic loops, old wounds that were never fully acknowledged, looping through time, waiting for someone to break the cycle. Some souls, after death, become bound not to places, but to people, especially those they were connected to in life. A mother who died grieving her child may linger, watching over the bloodline, unable to rest until that grief is healed. A father who passed with shame may attach to his descendants, unintentionally amplifying their own sense of worthlessness, not out of cruelty, but because his unresolved pain seeks a mirror. And sometimes the leaner mistake these sensations for fate. You might say, it runs in my family. But what if that's not destiny? What if it's inheritance, not of biology, but of suffering, passed from spirit to spirit, until someone becomes conscious, until someone says, this ends with me. Even places hold memory. A house, soaked in decades of anger, will hum with it. A hospital can echo the fear of every soul that passed through its halls. These vibrations imprint on walls, objects, rooms, and if you're sensitive, you can feel it the moment you step inside. The way your body tightens or your heart begins to race without any visible reason. This is why awareness is sacred, because when you know how energy moves, you become more than just a receiver. You become a guidepost, a protector, a healer. You can say, this isn't mine, and release it. You can cleanse a space with intention, with light, with sound. You can name the pattern, and naming alone begins to loosen it. But most importantly, you can look at your family, at your life, and ask the brave question, what am I carrying that doesn't belong to me? Because when you identify the pain that's been passed to you, you stop it from being passed again. You become the fork in the river, the one who chooses to flow in a new direction, not just for yourself, but for those who came before and those who will come after. That is the power you hold. You are not just healing your life. You may be healing generations. You may be liberating souls who never had the tools you have now. And some of those souls may be closer than you think, whispering through your emotions, reaching through your blood, asking for peace. They don't want to haunt you, they want to rest. And you are the bridge between suffering and salvation. There's a truth that lives quietly beneath the surface of your everyday life, a truth many sense but few have the language for. You may be living someone else's longing. The way you crave love, the way you fear failure, the ache you feel when you're alone, some of it may not originate from your own story at all. It may have started generations before you were born, in the silence of your ancestors, in the heartbreak they never spoke, in the wounds they tried to bury, and the dreams they never chased. Spiritual wisdom has long taught that energy is never lost, that karmic impressions, unresolved emotions, broken vows, and unfinished lessons ripple forward across time, passed not through genetics, but through the vibrational blueprint of the soul. If one generation suppresses its pain, the next may inherit the burden, until someone is brave enough to feel it. This is the invisible karmic transmission, a sacred, mysterious inheritance that modern science is only beginning to understand. Epigenetics, the study of how gene expression can be altered by life experience, reveals something astonishing. Trauma doesn't just scar the mind, it imprints on DNA. Studies have shown that the effects of deep emotional experiences, war, famine, abuse, can alter the chemical instructions written into our cells, passed on to children and grandchildren who never lived through the event itself. It's as if biology is finally catching up to what mystics have known all along, that pain travels, that healing must go deeper than the surface, that we are not born as blank slates, we are born mid-story. There's a story of a boy, just 5 years old, when he began to have night terrors, not ordinary nightmares. These were vivid, violent, the same images every night, a fire, smoke, screaming. He would wake, gasping, crying out a name his parents didn't recognize. They were a kind, gentle family, no history of trauma, no exposure to violent media. They took him to therapists, doctors, no diagnosis could explain what he was experiencing. Until one day, a curious relative began researching their ancestry. She uncovered a great-uncle, a man who had died tragically in a house fire generations before Samuel was born. The man's name, the same name Samuel had been crying out. When they showed Samuel an old photo, he pointed immediately. "That's him," he said. "That's the man who couldn't get out." No one had ever spoken of him. Not to Samuel, not even to his parents, but somehow the energy carried forward, not just in story, but in sensation. The trauma had found a child whose spirit was open, sensitive, and it had begun expressing itself, looking for resolution. When the family finally honored that story with prayer, with remembrance, with light, the dreams stopped, the fear lifted. Samuel's energy became lighter, not because the past was erased, but because it was acknowledged. That's the power of family healing. It's not just emotional closure, it's soul liberation. Because when you begin to explore your lineage not just through facts, but through energy, you start to see how much lies beneath the surface. The chronic sadness that runs through your family might not be yours. The fear of abandonment you carry could be a vibration inherited from a grandmother who lost her children. The pressure to succeed may come from a great-grandfather who died feeling like a failure, still whispering his unfinished ambition through your veins. You are not broken. You are echoing. And in that realization is your greatest power, the ability to stop the echo, to hear it fully, to feel it, but not become it. You don't need to know every ancestor's name. You don't need to understand every detail. All you need is the willingness to ask. What am I holding that doesn't belong to me? And then, to release it, to offer light to those who came before, to break the patterns by becoming conscious of them. That is the healing they've been waiting for. Because here's the sacred secret. You may be the answer to someone's unfinished prayer. You, with your awareness, your courage, your refusal to repeat the same story, you are the one chosen to bring the family line into the light, to shift the vibration of the entire tree, and in doing so, you don't just free yourself, you free them too. Energy doesn't lie, it doesn't disappear, but it can be transmuted. Pain can become wisdom, guilt can become grace, hunger can become peace. So if you've ever felt like your life carried a sadness too heavy to be yours, if your body has wept without memory, if your dreams have echoed names you've never spoken, know this, you are not haunted. You are being invited to heal, to remember, to release what was never yours to carry, and in doing so to return wholeness to the souls who passed it down. You are the bridge, and the healing begins with you. Awareness is alchemy. It doesn't just observe, it transforms. When you become aware of an unseen energy around you, when you feel the presence of something that doesn't belong to your current life, but lingers all the same, you've already begun the process of healing. Because energy thrives in the dark, it grows in silence, in avoidance, in denial. But the moment you shine your inner light on it, the moment you say, I see you, everything begins to change. That's the first step, acknowledgment. These hungry souls, these stuck fragments of human longing, they don't want to possess, they want to be heard. They are not intruders by nature. They are mourners, wanderers, forgotten voices. They come not to harm, but to be felt, to be remembered, to be known. You may not be able to help them move on through logic or force, but you can help them through recognition, through presence, through love. Think of how many souls passed through this world without ever feeling truly seen. How many people died with their pain still trapped in their chest, their story unfinished, their heart heavy with what was never said. Now imagine what it does to that soul, to be finally acknowledged. When you pause and say, if you are here, I feel you, you break their invisibility. That moment is sacred. That moment is healing. And from that moment, there are things you can do, simple, intentional, powerful. Light a candle, not for fear, not as a shield, but as a beacon, a symbol that says, you are no longer alone. Speak out loud, in your own words. You don't need a script, just sincerity. If you're still here, I honor your journey. I don't know your pain, but I witness it. You don't need to carry it anymore. You are free to go. Create space in your heart, not for attachment, but for release. Let your compassion rise like smoke. Let it wrap around whatever soul still lingers and offer it upward. Prayer isn't about doctrine, it's about frequency. Whether you whisper words, chant mantras, or sit in silence with your palms open, the intention behind your act creates an opening, and sometimes that opening is all a lost soul needs to move on. Forgiveness is another key, not just for the living, but for the dead. If you carry resentment toward someone who has passed, understand this. Your anger may be anchoring them. Unforgiven energy keeps souls circling the same pain, and sometimes they can't rise because you haven't let go. You don't have to excuse what was done, but you can choose to release the energy of it. You can choose to no longer be the echo. That is, forgiveness, the liberation of both souls. Visualization is another tool. You can imagine a door of light opening. You can visualize the soul stepping into it with peace, not fear. You can picture their energy loosening, lifting, dissolving into higher realms. You don't need to see their face. You don't need to know their name. Just hold the image. The mind is a powerful transmitter, and the spirit world responds to intention more than form. Remember, you are not performing an exorcism. You are guiding a homecoming. You are saying, you were never lost, only waiting to be found. Even if you never felt anything dramatic, even if you simply feel a persistent unease, a recurring dream, a sadness that keeps resurfacing, you can still do this. And if no soul is present, if the energy belongs only to memory or environment, your offering still clears the space. Love purifies, recognition liberates, awareness dissolves the cords. These souls are not asking for rituals soaked in fear. They're asking for the warmth of remembrance, the dignity of acknowledgment, the permission to stop carrying what never brought them peace. And here's the deeper truth. When you help a soul move on, something in you moves too. Your own grief may soften, your own story may open, your own light may shine a little clearer, because every time you say yes to compassion, a layer of your own heaviness is lifted. You're not just healing them, you're healing the part of you that stayed silent for too long, the part of you that once felt unseen, the part of you that's ready to be free. There's a wisdom that whispers, you cannot carry someone else's suffering, but you can hold it long enough for them to let it go. You are not the savior, you are the witness, and sometimes witnessing is enough. When you begin to open yourself to the unseen, when you acknowledge that souls can linger, that energy can attach, that emotion can move through you like wind through trees, you also begin to understand the importance of boundaries. Not barriers made from fear, but boundaries made from light. Spiritual hygiene is just as important as physical hygiene. You wouldn't go days without washing your body, so why go days without cleansing your energy? You're exposed constantly to thoughts, to moods, to environments that carry their own charge. And if you're sensitive, if your soul is naturally receptive, then you're absorbing more than you know. You might pick up sadness from a stranger on the train, confusion from a place where arguments once echoed, or grief that doesn't belong to this moment, but rises up in you like smoke from a fire that's still burning in another dimension. That's why discernment is vital. You need to know what's yours and what's not. It starts with awareness. When an emotion strikes you hard and fast, pause. Ask yourself gently, is this mine? If it is, breathe into it, feel it, honor it. If it isn't, release it. You don't need to carry what doesn't belong to you. You can say out loud or silently, if this energy is not mine, I release it with love. Not everything you feel is an invitation to heal. Sometimes it's a message to let go. This is where boundaries come in, not to push away, but to stay rooted in your own field. Establishing psychic boundaries doesn't mean closing your heart. It means protecting your frequency so you can love without absorbing, so you can help without becoming overwhelmed, so you can walk through shadows without forgetting that you are made of light. One of the simplest ways to do this is through intention. Every morning, before you step into the world, speak protection into being. You might say, I move through this day surrounded by light. Only love may enter. Only truth may stay. Or imagine a sphere of light surrounding you, gold, white, violet, whatever feels strongest. See it moving with you, flowing around you like water, clearing all that isn't yours. You can call on your higher self, the eternal wise version of you that exists beyond fear, beyond memory, beyond the limits of this lifetime. Ask it to lead your energy today. Ask it to filter what reaches you, to guide your reactions, to keep you aligned. You can also invoke the divine light, however you name it, source, spirit, God, the universe. Imagine that light descending through the crown of your head, filling every cell with clarity. Let it extend beyond your body. Let it wrap your aura like a second skin, a living shield of peace. Protection isn't a wall, it's a vibration. And when your vibration is steady, chaos cannot cling. Lower energies cannot penetrate. Hungry souls will pass by, not because they are blocked, but because they sense your boundary, your sovereignty, your alignment. This isn't about fear. This is about integrity, energetic integrity. Just like you don't leave your front door wide open every night. Don't leave your field open undefined. Choose what you let in. Choose what you hold. Choose what you return to the earth with gratitude. Here's a simple daily practice to keep your energy clear. In the morning, sit quietly, breathe deep, place your hand on your heart, feel your own frequency, then say with intention, I call all of my energy back to me. Anything I have given away unconsciously, I now reclaim with love, and anything I have absorbed that is not mine, I now release with gratitude and peace. Visualize your energy returning, like strands of light reconnecting, like pieces of yourself gently clicking into place, and feel anything foreign dissolving, melting off of you, returning to source. Do this whenever you feel scattered, tired, or emotionally flooded, because clarity is your compass, and when your energy is your own, you are unshakable. You can love the world without losing yourself in it. You can witness pain without becoming its vessel. You can honor the presence of hungry souls without inviting them to stay. Your light is not just warmth, it is structure, it is boundary, it is sovereignty, and when you choose to protect it, not out of fear but out of love, you become a lighthouse in a world filled with lost ships, a beacon for the weary, a signal to the suffering that it's safe to let go. That is the quiet power of boundaries made of light. What if none of this is random? What if the emotions you carry, the patterns you feel trapped in, the invisible weights you've been working to release, were chosen, not as punishment, but as purpose? There's a sacred teaching shared in many spiritual traditions. Before you came into this life, before you entered this body, this name, this timeline, you made certain agreements, soul contracts, promises written not in ink but in energy, vows exchanged between spirits in the realm before form. And some of those contracts involved healing the hungry, helping a soul find peace, carrying a pain that didn't start with you so it could finally be felt and released, being born into a family line not by accident but by design, because your spirit had the strength, the awareness, the compassion to break the pattern. You didn't choose the wound, but you may have chosen to be the one who heals it. That ache that returns again and again, not just emotional but spiritual, that deep pull toward compassion you can't explain, that intuitive sense that you've lived this pain before, or that someone unseen is walking beside you. It may all be part of the agreement. You are not a victim of these energies. You are a bridge, a sacred link between what was and what could be. And bridges don't exist for themselves. They exist to connect, to bring two shores together. You may have agreed long before this life began to become the one who remembers, the one who turns pain into wisdom, the one who meets the hungry soul with love instead of fear. And in doing so, you heal yourself. Because the healing you offer to others never stops with them. It ripples inward. It clears your field. It elevates your vibration. When you help a soul complete their journey, you accelerate your own. You may have noticed it already, that as you forgive the unforgivable, your body softens. As you speak words your ancestors never could, your heart opens. As you release grief you didn't know you carried, your path becomes lighter. That's not coincidence. That's soul alignment. There's a story of a man named Aaron. For years he struggled with depression. Not circumstantial, not situational, just a deep, unshakable weight that followed him like a shadow. Therapy helped. Spiritual practices helped. But the heaviness never truly left. One day, while going through old letters from his grandmother, he found one never opened. It was a letter she had written to her brother, who had died by suicide during the war. A brother no one ever spoke of. In the letter she wrote of the shame, the sorrow, the secrecy the family had carried ever since. "We don't say his name," she had written, "but I think the silence is killing us more than his death ever did." Herring realized in that moment he wasn't just feeling his own sadness. He was feeling the echo of a soul left in silence. And perhaps, he had agreed, before this life began, to be the one who would say the name again. He lit a candle. He spoke his great-uncle's name. He read the letter aloud. And then, for the first time in years, he wept, not with confusion, but with clarity. The sadness had a shape, a story, a name, and within a few weeks, the weight lifted. This is how ancestral patterns dissolve, through awareness, through courage, through love, and perhaps through a contract written long before you arrived. So if you've ever wondered why your life has taken the shape it has, why your soul chose the family it did, or why certain emotions cling even when everything else seems healed, consider the possibility that you are fulfilling an agreement made in love. Not obligation, not sacrifice, but sacred service. You said yes to being the light in a lineage that had forgotten how to shine. You said yes to holding space for a soul who couldn't cross on their own. You said yes to becoming the end of suffering and the beginning of peace. And you don't need to know the full contract. You don't need to understand every detail. Your compassion is the signature. Your awareness is the fulfillment. Your healing is the evidence. So the next time you feel that heaviness, that ache, that presence, don't ask, why is this happening to me? Ask instead, who am I helping set free? Because that shift in perspective might be the very key to setting yourself free as well. There may come a moment when you feel it, a presence near you, gentle but persistent, not threatening, just waiting, watching, wanting, a feeling like something is leaning in, hoping you'll notice, hoping you'll care, and when that moment comes, you'll know. This is a soul ready to go home. Not every spirit needs your help, but some do. Some stay because they're confused. Some linger because they think they still have something to finish. Others don't even realize they've passed. They're still looped in a moment of fear or loss or longing. And you may be the first source of light they've seen in a very long time. Helping a soul cross over isn't dramatic. It's not about ritual or power. It's about presence, intention, love. Begin with compassion, speak aloud, or in your heart, with gentleness. No judgment, no fear, just truth. If you are here, I feel you. You do not need to stay. You are safe, you are loved, you are free. Then invoke the light, not metaphorically, literally. Imagine a radiant column of light descending from above, pure, warm, gentle. See it filling the space, surrounding the soul with peace. You don't have to see the soul clearly, just trust the energy. This light isn't yours alone. It is the light of Source, divine intelligence, sacred memory. It knows what to do. You are simply inviting it in. Now speak again with clarity. Step into the light. Release what you carry. You are not bound. You are loved beyond measure. Your journey continues. If you feel fear or resistance, don't engage with it. Just hold steady. Keep your vibration high. Keep your heart open. Fear feeds confusion, but love dissolves it. You can also call in assistance. You are never alone in this work. Ask for the presence of angels, or guides, or ancestors who walked in light. Say aloud, I call forth any beings of love and truth who are here to assist this soul. May they be guided home in grace. You might feel a shift in the room, a sudden calm, a sense of presence larger than your own. That's not imagination. That's alignment. Many soul workers use affirmations or release prayers. You can adapt them to your own language. One might be, I forgive all that was. I release all that is not mine. I return to the source from which I came. I walk in light, and I am not alone. You can repeat this for the soul or encourage them to feel its vibration. You're not trying to fix them, you're helping them remember who they are and that they don't need to hold on to pain to stay real. Often the moment of release comes softly, not like a bang but like a breeze, a sudden lightness in the air, a subtle warmth, a pressure lifting from your chest or shoulders. You may even feel tears rise, not yours, but theirs, the release of something long held. Or maybe it's silence, a stillness that wasn't there before, a peace that settles over the room like a blessing. That's when you know they're gone. Not in the sense of erasure, but in the sense of return. Return to source, return to self, return to the stream of evolution they were meant to follow. And you've just witnessed something sacred. You've midwifed a soul into the light. This is holy work, not reserved for priests or sages, but for anyone with the courage to love without needing credit, for anyone who can feel the sorrow of another and offer, instead of fear, a hand of grace. It's not about drama, it's about devotion, a devotion to peace, to release, to light, and when you help a soul cross over, you cross a threshold in yourself as well. You become clearer, lighter, more aligned, because you've participated in the cosmic act of liberation, and every time you do, something in your own soul steps closer to freedom too. Maybe now you understand why you've felt things no one else could explain, why certain emotions cling to you like fog, why you've always sensed there was something more just beyond the edge of what others see. It's because your soul remembers what others forget. That the veil between the living and the dead is not solid, that the energy of the past doesn't simply disappear. It lingers, it ripples, it seeks resolution, and in the stillness of your heart, in the spaces between your thoughts, you've felt it, but now, instead of fearing it, you can meet it with love. You're not just here to survive your own life, you're here to restore what was broken, to listen to what was silenced, to feel what was never fully felt. You are not a magnet for pain, you are a transformer of it. Every act of compassion you offer to the unseen changes the field. Every time you say, "I see you," you break the cycle. You bring dignity to the forgotten. You remind the disembodied that they are still whole, still worthy, still part of the journey. This work may be invisible, quiet, unrecognized by most, blowing the cable, but it echoes. Your ancestors feel it. Your environment changes because of it. Your own inner world becomes more peaceful, more spacious, more clear, and over time, so does the world. Because healing isn't just about chakras and candles. It's about legacy. It's about what we carry and what we choose to put down. It's about looking at the suffering that came before us and saying, this doesn't have to continue. It's about making a different choice. Maybe you're the first in your family to do this. Maybe you're the first to ask the deeper questions, to feel the deeper feelings. Maybe you're the first to open the door to healing, not just for yourself, but for everyone who came before. And maybe that's why you're here. Not everyone is called to this path, but if you are, if something inside you has stirred while listening, then you already know. You've known all along. Your sensitivity is not a weakness, it's a gift. Your empathy is not a burden, it's a tool. Your presence is a sanctuary. So what now? Now you live your life with open eyes and a clear heart. You walk into rooms and listen deeper. You pause before judging an emotion as yours and ask instead, what's being mirrored here? You speak to the unseen with kindness, with boundaries, with light. You build rituals not to control, but to comfort. You become a living invitation to peace, and you begin to see the world differently, not as haunted, but as heavy with memory, not as cursed, but as calling, not as dangerous, but as sacred. Every interaction becomes a choice, to feed the pain or to release it, to repeat the old pattern or to transmute it, to ignore the presence or to guide it home. And slowly, silently, something incredible begins to happen. Your body becomes lighter, your sleep becomes deeper, your inner world becomes clearer. Because every soul you help, every echo you ease, takes a piece of weight with it. This is how you change reality, not by force, but by frequency, not by loudness, but by love. So, if a soul comes to you in a dream, in a mood, in a sudden memory that won't let go, don't run. Breathe. Listen. Offer light. and trust that your presence matters more than you'll ever fully understand. You don't need to be perfect. You just need to be willing to witness, to love, to guide. Because the truth is, you were never alone in this life. And now, neither are they.